What is up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new video. And today the topic we are going to be talking about is very serious. A terrorist attack has occurred in Russia once again. This is the third attack in the past 3 months and the second this summer. The head of the Republic of Dagestan, Sergei Melikov, reported that at least 15 police officers were killed and several more civilians as well. So not only the police have been murdered, also the ordinary civilians. A counter-terrorism operation has been started in Dagestan to find the armed men who are doing massacre. During this counter-offensive, military vehicles were introduced into the city of Derbent. They had military officers and military equipment roaming all around the streets, trying to find the armed men in Dagestan. Now in this video, I will be telling you in detail what actually has happened over at Dagestan. How comes there was a third terrorist attack in Russia for the past 3 months? Do Russian people have to worry about this? Does the current regime that is currently operating in Russia, do they have to worry about it? You tell me in the comment section below, and let's get into the story of what is actually happening and has happened in Dagestan during those horrific times. On the evening of June 23, in Derbent, armed militants opened fire on the synagogue and the Orthodox Church of the Intentions of the Blessed Virgin Mary and Lenin Street. During the attack on the church, terrorists cut the throat of Tira Nikolai, the priest that has served in Derbent for more than 40 years. There were victims in the synagogue as well. There was a corpse of a guard found that was being shot in the head. The only weapon that guard had in the synagogue was pepper spray. Obviously, that is not going to be any good when you encounter terrorists with machine guns. The armed men had burned down the synagogue, and on the back doors of the synagogue, they actually wrote numbers of the verses from the Quran. Basically, they left the chapters of the Quran on the door of the synagogue. As a result of the mass shootings and burning down the synagogues, the police have been notified about this. So the whole police of Derbent was alarmed, and they started working on the special operation to eliminate the terrorists. The terrorist attack took place in Makhachkala at around 7 p.m. when they started shooting at a police block post. The synagogue that they burned down was actually located really close to the police outpost that they started shooting at. So obviously they wanted to eliminate the police so that they could get into the synagogue, set it on fire, murder the guard that was guarding the place. Those armed men, or should I call them terrorists, which they are, held hostage of 40 people inside of the church. The Ministry of Internal Affairs of Dagestan stated that there were no hostages in that church, which is a bit weird because at 7 p.m. you could have somebody over in a church. Why not? And you got to remember one thing, guys. All of this has happened during the Orthodox celebration, so you would have imagined that there would be quite a lot of people in those churches. So you could see straight away that they are trying to mask away the fact that a few armed men in a country where if you go out on a protest, you'd get arrested in no time, they'll find out where you live and stuff like that. But you can have armed men run around with guns in a city, capture a church, burn down a synagogue, and it takes them a while to get into them. That sounds a bit odd to me. This sounds a bit odd, just like the Crocus mass shooting. It's unbelievable. And I feel very sorry for the people who actually lost their lives because of this. The armed men were also shooting at the passing by police cars. So you would have a police car driving by and they would just start spraying them down with their machine guns. Only closer to midnight, so imagine this, from 7 p.m. to around 12 p.m. that's when they actually have eliminated the attackers. And during the attacks, the head of the Dagestan police The chief of police has been also killed in action, but I find it really weird that it took them so long to get rid of 5 or 6 armed men in Dagestan, in Russia, where I'm pretty sure you're supposed to have people that are able to take out terrorists in a matter of seconds. I don't know why this takes so long. According to the head of Dagestan, several more civilians were killed. How many? He did not specify. In addition, the head of Dagestan has said that 6 of those armed men have been eliminated during the counter-terrorism operation, while the National Anti-Terrorism Committee has reported only 5. So I don't understand how it works that one government person says that they eliminated 6, a anti-terrorism committee says they eliminated 5. How does this even work? I don't know. I mean, if you eliminated 6 people, you would have 6 bodies. If you eliminated 5, you would only have 5. How do they count? I have no idea. Even before any details about the attack have appeared anywhere with some information, you could obviously think that there are millions and millions of versions of why did it happen, who were those armed men under, have started appearing all over the place. And you would not be surprised, but obviously you could guess a country that the government would be blaming for any terrorist attack happening in Russia right now. Obviously, Russia was blaming the Ukrainian special forces for doing this. They have said that they have no doubts that this is in full connection of NATO and special military from Ukraine. Wow. Yeah, obviously. How comes they didn't open up the Russian and Ukrainian border this time for them to escape? Oh wait, I forgot, there's actually military action going on there, so how is the Russian side going to let them out? How's the Ukrainian side going to get them in? Why are they not giving this thing now, this time? Why are they not saying this? How could this come in their minds that it is Ukraine and NATO involved in the Orthodox Church and the synagogue? Because as you remember, guys, the Ukrainian president is Jewish, so why would he send somebody to burn down this synagogue? Also, you got to remember that Ukraine has a big population of Orthodox people who would definitely not like something like that happening during an Orthodox celebration. So this makes completely zero sense. So obviously the government is telling everybody now that this is the NATO's and Ukrainians' fault because they're trying to shake out the situation inside of the country so that they could destabilize Russia one way or another. But it's a weird way to destabilize Russia, doing it in Dagestan, burning down the synagogue, capturing some churches. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. What actually surprised me the most is Dmitry Rogozin. If you don't know who that guy is, Dmitry Rogozin was the ex-head of Roscosmos, which is the company that sends out spaceships and stuff like that into the space. He actually said something interesting. This is what he has said. State Duma deputy from Dagestan, Gadzhiev, believes that the special services of Ukraine are behind the terrorist attack in the Republic and NATO countries. And I believe that if we attribute every terrorist attack involving national and religious intolerance, hatred, and Russophobia to the machinations of Ukraine and NATO, then this pink fog will lead us to big problems in someone else's eye. We see a speck in our logs, but it's time. I was really surprised that Rogozin actually said something, that you can't just be blaming everything on Ukraine and NATO, and you actually have to think about who did this and what is the real reasoning of this third terrorist attack in Russia. Now, what's really interesting is that it turned out that amongst the terrorists that were eliminated, there were a sons and a nephew of the head of the Sergo-Kalinsky district of the Republic of Dagestan. Magomed Omarov. The media has already published a video of the attack on the synagogue in Makhachkala, which was allegedly filmed by one of the Omarov's son. He was also shot and killed in the village of Sarakela. Funnily enough, the police have received information that Magomed Omarov has resigned. He was detained and taken for questioning, and his house was searched. Now, what drew really big attention is the fact that the page of the head of the Sergokalinsky district of Dagestan, Magomed Omarov, disappeared from the official website of the United Russia Party because he's a member of the Regional Political Council of Parties and the secretary of its local branch in general. If the information about the sons is confirmed, it will be an important touch and interesting information for reflection. Because we used to see and used to believe that usually it's the poor, socially unprotected Muslims that usually get involved with this type of stuff. They get messaged on different social medias. They get grabbed into that thing to do some sort of a terrorist act. But this time we could see that it is one of the government officials' sons who comes from quite a wealthy family. So that is quite interesting. Who obviously this person did not do it for the money, because with all the connections he has, he could have definitely opened any business in Dagestan, which would definitely work out because his family is in the government. So this is a very interesting point to point out and see, why did he do it? Obviously not for the money. So this is something different we're seeing from this terrorist attack in Dagestan. The identities of the terrorists, as I'm making this video right now, have still not been revealed officially. Now, what we know is that the Dagestan law enforcement have actually said about the fact that the attackers could be involved in an international terrorist organization. Obviously, we don't know which one yet. It'll be very hard to find out because the people were eliminated. But if we see some sort of a video from one of those organizations, then we will find out who did it. But obviously, it was not NATO, USA, England, Ukraine, Poland. It was none of them. This is a terrorist organization that has done this. Now, what's really interesting is that the Ministry of Internal Affairs actually had cases of some of those people who were involved in the attacks that they knew that they had some sort of an involvement in terrorist organizations. My questioning is, why didn't they look into them? Why were they not following them? Why didn't they take them for questioning? Why did they let some terrorists walk around on the streets of Dagestan and allow them to do something like this? If I was working in police or internal ministry or whatever, and I had this red sign beside somebody's name that says that he could be probably connected to some huge terrorist organization, I would definitely do a lot of research on that person, where he lives, what he does, what his plans is. I would have tapped his phone, tapped his house, tapped his whatever, you know, so that you would not have such terrorist attacks. Now, what is crazy is that this is the third terrorist attack. This could tell us one thing: the Homeland Security in Russia are doing a very bad job. They're doing a really good job finding protesters, where they live, what they do, what their families are, blah, 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 on all that stuff. But when you start talking about the real threat to people, that's when they're not doing anything whatsoever. They're not doing anything. This is unbelievable. They should be embarrassed of themselves. Now, another idea could be that it's the government itself that is doing this so that they could say, wow, those countries are trying to destabilize our country from the inside. we will get all the citizens to understand that the West has its hands dirty in this situation. And that is probably what's going to be happening. Just a week before the attack in Dagestan, a hostage taking took place in the Rostov pre-trial detention center on June 16. 6 prisoners took 2 employees of the pre-trial detention center, 1 hostage in Rostov-on-Don. The criminals said that acting on behalf of the Islamic State, then the security forces were able to free the hostages and eliminate all the terrorists. These things are happening in Russia. An interesting point again is that shortly before the tragic events in Dagestan, the head of the region, Sergei Melikov, held a meeting on anti-terrorist measures. And also, funnily enough, they held anti-terrorist measures in the prisons as well and in Dagestan. And what are those measures? Letting them come in? I think that, some people should take their heads out of their butts and actually realize that all of this corruption has made everything so bad that you can't even prevent 5 or 6 guys from doing something very horrible. And when it does happen, you blame it on Ukraine, NATO, and all the other countries that could be possibly involved in destabilizing Russia. What's interesting is that the Kremlin has not voiced its opinions and views about this. The president didn't go on television and talked about this like in any other country where you would have a terrorist attack. You would have a president go on state television straight away to address the citizens of Russia. None of that was done. He just told his press secretary to say something like, "My condolences to the victims and the families of the victims in Dagestan." How could a president not go at least on television? But he flies to North Korea, flies to Vietnam, and all that stuff. Now, that also probably brings a lot of conspiracy theories. How comes a person can't just go like that and address its citizens? Is he even there? Is he in good health? Is he in bad health? What do you guys think? What do you guys think about this whole situation? Obviously, it's very horrible because people lost their lives in a meaningless terrorist attack that could have been prevented if it wasn't for the corruption. At least the president could have addressed all of this, but he didn't. Thank you very much for watching this video. I just could not hold this inside of myself and not tell you the story about the terrorist attack in Dagestan. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Stay safe. I love every single one of you. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.